She's so rotten, she wants migrants picking cotton. We present to you Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, who made this shocking argument why America needs immigrants. Roll it, Alfred.
So I had to go around the country and educate people about what immigrants do for this country, or the fact that we are a country of immigrants.
Right.
The fact is, ain't none of y'all trying to go and farm right now. Okay, so I'm lying. Raise your hands.
This is when the wheels fall off.
You're not. We done picking cotton. We are. You can't pay us enough to find a plantation.
Tyrus, I go to you for no particular reason.
When Jasmine Crockett walked onto that stage, she had no clue she was walking straight into a verbal ambush. With a smirk on her face and a rehearsed soundbite in hand, she thought she had it all under control. But Greg Gutfeld and Tyrus weren't there to play nice. They came ready to tear her argument limb from limb. The moment she opened her mouth, Greg launched an attack so sharp it felt like a missile slicing through butter. His sarcasm hit so hard, the audience could barely catch their breath between shocked gasps and uncontrollable laughter. Then came Tyrus. Not waiting for his turn, he jumped in like a heavyweight champ, delivering punchlines that slammed Crockett's credibility to the floor. This wasn't just a debate, it was a demolition. She expected cheers, but instead got a brutal dose of live television reality. Armed with shiny buzzwords and political polish, Crockett hoped to dazzle, but Gutfeld's mockery burned straight through the glitter and revealed nothing but a hollow core beneath.
I'll take it from there, Gutfeld. I'm going to explain to you what happened.
Okay.
Same thing that happened on this show.
Yes.
She got the job. That was the get the job voice. Remember when I first met you? Good evening, Gutfeld. It's
Yes.
nice to meet you. It's a real pleasure to be here. Oh, cool. Once I got the job, what it is, let's crack jokes tonight. So that's all it is. That's all it is. You know, it's just.
Jasmine Crockett still conceals the meaning of Hot Wheels. The Texas Congresswoman still won't apologize over making fun of Texas Governor Abbott's disability. Here's what she said that kicked it off.
We in these hot-ass Texas streets, honey. Y'all know we got Governor Hot Wheels down there. Come on now.
Whoa.
And the only thing hot about him is that he is a hot-ass mess, honey. So,
Now she claims that she wasn't talking about Abbott's wheelchair at all. Yet she's mentioned Abbott's wheels before. In 2022, she posted Beto's rolling around the state. Where's Abbott rolling to?
Crockett tried to keep her cool, but every word she spoke only made things worse. It was like watching someone dig their own hole deeper with every sentence. Gutfeld just raised an eyebrow, and Tyrus cracked his knuckles, signaling the verbal beatdown was about to intensify. When she leaned hard into her Justice for the People speech, Greg didn't even bother replying. His silence alone crushed harder than 1,000 facts. Then Tyrus leaned in with icy precision, and the second he opened his mouth, Crockett visibly flinched. She could feel it coming, the truth, loud and fast. Tyrus sliced through her contradictions like a surgeon. One minute she wants reform, the next she's tweeting defund, and then suddenly begging for more police. It was a tornado of mixed-up messages, and they exposed every twist of it. Greg didn't argue. He laughed, and every time she tried to get serious, he snapped back with savage clarity that slogans aren't solutions. The crowd turned quickly, her lines landed flat while theirs punched like thunder. She tried to go serious again, but Gutfeld just mocked her like she was delivering a late-night parody instead of a real point, and the audience devoured it. Then came the moment that sealed it. Her clumsy attempt to explain a past insult about Governor Abbott collapsed live. Greg and Tyrus pounced like wolves scenting fear. Her explanation was nonsense, and Greg called it right then and there. The look on her face said everything. She thought she was clever, but even the audience wasn't buying it. And Tyrus? He wasn't letting up, not for a second.
You gotta, to get the job, you know, you gotta leave the Negro at home and do the, like, you know, the, what it is afternoon. And then once you get in, you can say whatever you want to say. Listen, everyone talks different with their crew and their people. Everyone has a different way of talking when they're with other people or whatever. She's too comfortable. And she thinks she's clever when she does that. But here's the cold part. Somebody's writing that for her.
Yeah.
That's why she had to remember and look back, because apparently Hot Wheels she thought was going to be someone thought it was a wonderful joke and it was going to do well. So she set it up, but she doesn't read good because she's like, and this, and then she said the Hot Wheels, and as soon as she said it, it didn't get the reaction that she thought it would.
Tyrus locked eyes with the camera and dropped a line so brutal it stunned even Crockett. This wasn't just political criticism, it was a cultural knockout. He exposed how she talks one way behind closed doors and another way for the cameras. Tyrus didn't hold back. "Someone's writing that for her," he said, and the crowd erupted. Because it felt brutally real. Crockett tried to pivot. She scrambled back to her favorite buzzwords: equity, empowerment, reform. But Greg waved it all off like yesterday's news. "We've heard it before," he sneered, and the impact was devastating. Every time she tried to sound bold, Gutfeld and Tyrus made it crystal clear. Words are cheap, and her speeches weren't worth a dime. The whole vibe flipped from debate to roast, and Crockett was the one on the grill. She looked lost, floundering for a lifeline. Tyrus shook his head and unleashed the line that broke the room. "This makes me wish my mom made different father choices." The studio exploded, and Crockett's stunned silence was louder than anything she'd said all night. When she tried to pivot to law and order, it was like watching someone build a house of cards in a hurricane. She acted tough, then retreated, then erased her own argument altogether. Greg didn't need to speak, his smirk said it all. But when he finally did, it hit like a cannon blast, calling out her contradiction with just one line that froze her in place. Tyrus followed with surgical timing. "She wants to look tough on crime, but can't even define what crime is." The audience roared as Crockett fumbled, searching for a comeback that never came. Every word about justice only exposed more cracks in her story. She threw out big shiny words, but Gutfeld and Tyrus weren't dazzled. They brought the proof.
You're not. We done picking cotton. We are. You can't pay us enough to find a plantation.
Tyrus, I go to you for no particular reason. Is she making any point there?
Like this makes me wish my mom made different father choices.
And they weren't letting up, not for a second. Then came the moment that turned the room into pure chaos. The speech comparison. Tyrus called out Crockett's language for sounding like a yoga retreat ad instead of real leadership. "Namaste isn't policy," he snapped, and Crockett froze on the spot. Greg jumped in right after, mocking her tone with brutal precision. "Let's vibe check this issue," he joked, and the audience howled with laughter as Crockett sat there stunned and silent. Just when she thought it couldn't possibly get worse, they pulled up her legislative record, and it was a disaster. Tyrus read out one failed bill after another, loud, proud, and completely ineffective. "Lots of noise, no action," he declared, and Crockett tried to cut him off. But every sentence she muttered was met with a sharper, funnier rebuttal. She kept circling back to slogans, desperate for a wind, but Greg clapped back each time with razor-sharp wit that made it all look too easy. Finally, she raised her voice, tried to reclaim control, but instead of commanding the stage, she just revealed how rattled she was. Her fire dimmed, and the spotlight only made it worse. Then Tyrus struck again, this time with a jab so cold it burned, pointing at her social media obsession. "You don't need a resume, you've got hashtags." The crowd went wild. Crockett tried to defend her online presence, but Greg cut in with another blow. Great for clout, terrible for constituents. Boom, direct hit. She tried steering things toward her district, playing it safe, but Greg wasn't letting her off the hook. "Funny," he said. "How your tweets say more than your policies." Then Tyrus folded his arms, leaned back, and dropped one of the hardest lines of the night. "You're more about looking busy than being useful." Crockett's composure cracked again, and the room shifted. Everyone realized they weren't watching a debate anymore. They were watching a meltdown in real time. She tried to pivot once more, now clinging to a speech on community empowerment, but Greg raised an eyebrow and crushed it with one line, "All buzz, no blueprint." It was a knockout. Crockett looked like she'd just taken a punch to the gut.
People write, this is why when white people write black slang, weird happens.
Yeah.
And this is what happens.
Well,
Like, if I wanted to get ethnic on somebody, I wouldn't call Joe and be like, "Hey, Joe, write me some hood." No offense, Tyrus, I get right to it. Gee Willikers, that's not the guy. What? That doesn't sound like Joe Mackey?
So, Dana, Governor Hot Wheels, she claims that it had nothing to do with the fact that he actually moves by wheels in a wheelchair, and he's good looking.
Her cleanup was worse. That was one of the worst things I've ever seen. It was super dumb. So basically she's saying, I didn't do it. And even I did do it, though, we're the victims.
Tyrus leaned in slowly, calm and controlled, and dropped the question that shook the whole room. Where's the plan, Jasmine? You say a lot, you post a lot, but what do you actually deliver? Crockett tried to pivot again, this time claiming that people were just misunderstanding her mission. But Greg wasn't having any of it. No one's confused, he said sharply. They're just tired of the performance. Then came the moment that cut the deepest. Greg compared her to a movie trailer that never becomes a real film. You show up, give us a preview, then vanish when it's time to deliver. The audience gasped, then erupted in applause. Crockett's eyes darted. Realizing the control was gone, she didn't look like a confident guest anymore. She looked like the star of a live ambush. And just when you thought it had peaked, Tyrus leaned in for the final body blow of the round. You're all fire until the questions come, then it's smoke. Crockett dropped her gaze as the crowd exploded again. She shifted in her chair, trying to rebuild what was already in pieces, but it was too late. Her confidence was cracked and slipping fast. Every word out of her mouth now felt like damage control, weak, rehearsed, and hollow, and Greg wasn't giving her an inch. She tried once more with an emotional speech about marginalized communities, but Greg was locked in. Emotion doesn't erase incompetence, he fired back, slicing through her performance like a scalpel through soft butter. Then Tyrus leaned forward, not to argue, but to deliver a final verdict. We've heard the words before, he said flatly, but we're still waiting for results. Crockett blinked fast, clearly rattled. She tried brushing it all off as personal attacks, but that gave Greg even more ammunition. This isn't personal, he said. This is accountability, and you're not used to it. As Crockett tried to explain her way out, Tyrus calmly interrupted with a line that stopped her cold. Why does everything feel like a slogan audition? Then he tilted his head and hit her with the knockout question. Where's the leadership? She raised her voice, but it didn't help one bit.
About him is that he is a hot mess, honey. So,
Of course, Crockett now claims Hot Wheels was about shipping migrants out of the state. Don't you get that? Not the governor's condition. If only there was video that perfectly encapsulates the liberal inability to land a lick on MAGA. Turns out we have one. Roll it, Bjorn.
He's a racist. How can I be racist? He's a racist. If you voted for Trump, you're racist.
I hope you enjoy the hat. Oh, she took a tackle.
Never get tired of that.
Every fiery word from Crockett was met with cold, crushing logic, and the contrast was devastating. She brought emotion, but they brought receipts. Then the topic shifted to economic development, and that's when it all collapsed at lightning speed. Crockett tried bragging about bold new plans, but couldn't name even one with any substance. Greg didn't flinch. He saw straight through it and struck hard. More glitter, no gold, he declared, shaking his head. The audience roared as Crockett fumbled like she was grasping at air. Then, desperate for traction, she threw out the word intersectionality, like a lifeline. But Gutfeld rolled his eyes and shut it down with a verbal hammer. Big word, small impact. The sting was brutal, and the silence that followed was deafening. Tyrus jumped in next, mocking her entire platform by comparing it to ordering a fancy coffee and getting warm milk, Crockett tried to answer, but nothing came out that could stop the laughter rolling across the studio. Then Greg leaned in for the ultimate zinger. You walked in with a speech, we walked in with facts. Guess which one won? Crockett's face tensed. There was no comeback left, and then came the viral moment that would set the internet on fire. Tyrus, calm as a statue, stared right at her and delivered the blow that no spin could erase. Jasmine, you're not the voice of change. You're the echo of a broken microphone. The crowd lost it. Not with support, but with stunned disbelief at the brutal unraveling they just witnessed. Crockett slumped ever so slightly, her usual spark dimmed by the sheer force of being completely overpowered. Logic, tone, facts, even humor were turned against her, and it showed. Greg leaned forward with a smirk and twisted the knife one last time. This isn't about attacking you, it's about exposing the performance behind the politics. And then Tyrus delivered a line that shook the room like thunder.
Of course, Crockett isn't the only Democrat who's opposed to interracial marriage, or else more Democrats would have voted for this one. Racist! Tyrus, I go to you for no apparent reason. Do you have an opinion on this, or should I move on to somebody?
No, I just... It has to come from me.
Yes.
Okay. None of y'all are qualified. Not just for one thing. I'm mad at Charmaine the guy because he should have kicked her out. See, the problem is that we are allowing our own culture to be openly racist and get away with it. Now, if a white person is offended by that, and they should be.
We're not trying to silence you, Tyrus said, calm and cool. We're just done pretending you're making sense, Crockett blinked hard, clearly trying to hold back whatever emotion was left, but the fight was already over, and every single person in the room knew it. As the segment wrapped, Gutfeld turned straight to the camera and delivered a closing line so sharp it was guaranteed to explode online within minutes. She came to debate. She left a headline. That was it, game over. Crockett sat frozen while the studio buzzed, not with applause, but with the stunned energy of people witnessing something unforgettable. Tyrus, barely louder than a whisper, dropped one last burn. If political theater had a blooper reel, this would be the feature presentation. And as the credits rolled, Crockett forced a weak smile. But nothing could hide the wreckage. No slogan could patch up what had just collapsed. Backstage, the silence screamed louder than words. What was supposed to be her spotlight turned into a stage-lit breakdown. And it scorched her. Within minutes, the internet blew up. Hashtags flew, clips exploded, and every headline shouted the same thing. Humiliated. Analysts tried spinning it, but the footage didn't lie. Crockett wasn't defeated by cruelty. She was dismantled by something even sharper. Clarity! Gutfeld and Tyrus didn't just debate her, they stripped away every layer of performance until all that was left was an empty echo of slogans and gestures. The debate was over. The audience had made its choice, and Crockett's platform didn't just falter, it collapsed under the full weight of its own contradiction. That stage, under the blinding lights and hard truth, became a courtroom. And Jasmine Crockett learned the brutal lesson: if you walk into the lion's den with slogans and selfies, don't be shocked when the lions bite back.